on one of my more recent videos, there was a guy who asked about dealing with objections when a woman isn't ready to come home with you, right? You're like, hey, let's go back to my place, Netflix and chill, wink, wink, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh, well, I'm not ready. I don't go home with you guys on the first date. This kind of stuff. Let's see. I'm not comfortable going to your place yet. I have to be somewhere soon. You think I'm going to sleep with you on the first date? Okay, that's the kind of objections that he wants to know how to deal with. And this is an important skill to have because not every single time you date a girl, it's just going to be 100% and great, right? Dating is not hot or cold. There are tons of temperatures in between, and there's a lot of things that you can do to get past those humps, right? Now, some people's perspectives on this, especially mainstream dating, and that would be the response, or this is the kind of the response they'll have is like, well, if she's not ready, then, just let it go. And, when she's ready, she'll be ready. Or, when the right one comes along, that's what like some side will say, right? Because they're afraid that somehow, discussing it further and being persuasive is some sort of harassment or aggression. And then there's other people on the other side who are like, usually the guys who are like, well, if she's not interested, then because there was another comment that I saw, some guy was like, well, if she's not interested in, doing anything with you, she was never into you and, you're just wasting your time. And it's like, okay, well, that's the other extreme where it's like, if there's any sort of hump in attraction, then just give up. It's like, okay, well, you see, when I phrase it that way, it sounds, more obvious what he's actually going for. He's just like gives up at the first sign of trouble, right? If we applied this to relationships or marriages, problems would never get solved. We just we don't communicate for two different reasons. We don't communicate because we don't want any sort of confrontation, or we don't communicate because we don't want confrontation, but from two little bit different perspectives. But maybe they are the same thing, kind of like a horseshoe situation. But anyways, right? So how do we deal with it when a girl is not quite ready to like take that next step with you, right? Well, the answer is very interesting. And it actually somewhat listens to the people in the first camp, but not this particular part. So people in this camp are like, well, if she's not interested, she's not interested, leave her alone. For the most part, they get a lot of that wrong because, like I said, attraction has a lot of gradients between 0 and 100, right? But there is one thing that they like to talk about a lot, which is being open and communicative with people. They take it to the extreme, to the extent where they're like, you need to give someone a form with. They don't say this explicitly, not in every case. When it comes to sex and consent, yes, they do say this explicitly, like basic or very clearly, closely, like we need to have like documented forms of like what's gonna happen, da 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 da. It's like, holy shit, you're insane. But they do have it right where you need to be more open and communicative and transparent. But there are times in the seduction process or in the courtship ritual, if you will, where this is actually the best move, not only like ethically, but it's actually strategically and tactically the best move, meaning it's the hottest, right? Let's not use weird language, right? It's actually the most attractive thing you can do is to be really open and communicative with the girl at this point. But that's not the entire seduction, right? Now, I myself am a very direct communicator, okay? Like the extreme. I have not met anyone. I've met lots of fucking people, right? And lots of dudes who are good with girls, guys in the industry and guys outside the industry. And usually guys outside the industry tend to be better than a lot of guys in the industry because the guys in the industry tend to be weird. But even guys outside of it, no one does what I do. My style of seduction, right? Like my martial arts, my special secret kung fu, is I am very direct. It's been coined sexually direct, ultra direct game. I've even called it, kind of jokingly, metagame, where I will discuss with the girl, like me and her, what I want from her, what I'm like, how I'm acting, how she's acting, and I'll point it out because I enjoy discussing social dynamics. I think it's fascinating. And I'll talk about it with her. Like, hey, is this how you're feeling about me? Because this is how I'm feeling about you. But I know how to do it in a way that's not overly scientific, and so it's cold and lifeless and weird. But it also doesn't come off like I'm way too overly invested. Like, wait, do you like me, or do you, and then it just becomes needy and annoying or creepy. I've learned how to do it in a way that's really, really attractive, which sounds incredibly narcissistic, but I'm just being honest. So I actually kind of live by this mentality where it's like, be overly communicative. But even then, I understand that a lot of what happens in a courtship between men and women is nonverbal and is communicated. Nonverbal is not even the way to put it. Like, it's just communicated with the actions that are taken or the things not said, right? Nonverbal is like body language and facial expressions, but there's also like someone doesn't respond to X question or X comment, which usually insinuates something given the context, right? Like you make a flirtatious comment and she doesn't address it, right? Given one context, it could mean she's not interested and she's like ignoring it, ignoring the elephant in the room. But in a different context, it can actually mean she really likes it because the reason why she's not responding is because she's shy or nervous in a good way, right? But then to recognize that, you have to look at the context of body language and what you've been talking about beforehand and signs of interest that she's been showing up until now. And, it gets very complicated, right? So you cannot contractually discuss a lot of attraction in the entire process. Like texting her, say, I want to go on a date with you, and these are my expectations, or what's going to happen, and we're going to go here for 45 minutes, and then we're going to move here, right? That sounds retarded, because it is, right? And then a lot of, when you're with her, you're not going to be checking in. Hey, how much do you like me on a scale from 1 to 10? Do you like me on like 6 out of 10? Like, you're willing to kiss me? 7 out of 10? You're willing to like, I can feel you up. 8 out of 10, like I can finger bang you. 9 out of 10, blowjob. Like, you're not having that sort of discussion, right? My style does kind of veer towards that, and I make it really fun, but most people are not going to do it. Like I said, I've never met anyone who does it the way I do it, okay? But when it comes to this particular point in the seduction, this particular stage in the courtship, where such a funny word, courtship. I was actually talking to Chase, and we were trying to come up with like a term, right? And we came up with this term to kind of encapsulate seduction, and it's called the courtship escalation process. But it's a very dirty word, but it's really cool because it does go in, successive order, right? You meet her, get her phone number, go on the date, right? Until, penis and vagina, and then, continuous penis and vagina sessions, and, getting together and blah, 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 relationships, the whole shebang, right? Anyway, that was just making a comment on courtship. I was like, where the fuck am I going with that? Yeah. So see, I'll comment on my own self too. All right. It's kind of funny and charming if you do it right. Don't know if I'm doing it right on a YouTube video, but I do it better when I'm one-on-one with a person. Anyways, digression over, meta-analysis over. At this point in the seduction, I think that every guy, regardless of your style, whether you're more introverted and kind of play it cool, or you're really extroverted and, very talkative, or something in between, at this point when you invite a girl to come home with you and she puts the brakes on things and gives you one of these objections, which is like, what were they again? Like, I'm not comfortable going to your place. I have somewhere to be soon. Think I'm going to sleep with you on the first date. 2 of those you can actually really address. If you're getting, I have to be somewhere soon, your approach should be a little bit different. But I think regardless, like the overarching strategy is you should be very direct. Because at this point, you're going for, it's what kind of metaphors can we use here? Like, if we're using a poker analogy, right? Like, the flop happened, the turn happened, the river happened, okay? All of the cards are on the table, and you flipped over your cards to show your hand. Or she flipped hers, basically, right? Like, hey, let's go back to my place, right? Like, you weren't very direct. You didn't say, hey, come back to my place so I can stuff your pussy full with my dick, right? And you know, stir your macaroni and cheese, whatever you want to do with her, right? But you kind of did at the same time, right? And so she shows you one of her cards, right? She shows you an ace or, you know, a fucking 2. I don't know where you want to go with this metaphor, but she shows you a card, right? And she's like, I got to wake up early. Or, you know, she shows you like a really strong card, like a fucking king. And she's like, I'm not going back to your place. I'm not that kind of girl. Whatever kind of shit she says, right? You have to respond, right? Because how she's going to move forward or how the game's going to move forward is depending on what you have in your hand, right? Because at some point you do have to reveal your hand. And the reason why I say this is an important part where every guy should actually be direct is because you have showed your hand, right? Now, the reason why you went on the date in the first place is because you want to have sex with her, right? That is the cornerstone of the entire reason why you're talking to women and not men. I make this joke with friends a lot. I'm like, why don't you fuck your best friend? Because he's a guy. Okay. So if you talk to women for the sole reason of like the unique part of relationships between men and women, or men and women and women, depending on what you like, is because you are attracted to that sex sexually, right? So you going on a date with them is very different from hanging out with your buddy, because the explicit purpose you're going there for is to interview each other for potential fucking or dating or marrying and kid making, okay? So it's already somewhat on the table from the beginning, but there's kind of this game where we pretend that it's not there. And I like to not play that game and be very upfront about it because I think it's fun and silly, and it's also really attractive if you do it right. But most people aren't doing it, which I've said 10 times, but I'll probably say it again too to highlight my point. But at this point, we should be very open about it. And the reason why is because the line of questioning that is available to you once you are open about this shit is very powerful and very persuasive, which is why I think that this is a very good tactic or strategy to use when you're trying to persuade a girl to come home with you. Because it's not so simple as like, oh, she's not interested. If she really wasn't interested, I can promise you, she would very directly, flat out say, hey, it's nice meeting you, but, you know, I'm not interested. Or if she's not so confrontational, she'll be like, yeah, sorry, I got to get home in there. You know, I got to get home. I got to wake up early, you know, have a good day. Right. It'll be a reason and then a dismissal, and she'll leave. Right. When women aren't interested in you and not comfortable with you, they leave. Okay. Right. If she's still sticking around and she's open to persuasion, then that means she's still pretty interested, right? She's just on the fence for X or Y reason. And it's your job to find out which reason it is. Is it X? Is it Y? Is it Z? Is it D plus fucking F? It's these two reasons together, right? She's on her period. She's, she has, you don't know, but she has a boyfriend and she reveals it to you. Which if she does have it, you should leave, because I advise that you don't go after girls with boyfriends or husbands. You know, it's super bad karma. Don't do it. Even if, you know, she's really hot and she's open to it, because obviously she is. Or, you know, I'm not that kind of girl, or this is too fast, or she just got out of a relationship and she's heartbroken. You know, who the fuck, right? There's so many different fucking examples, right? You need to find out what the reason is. And the way that you find out is by being really direct about your intentions, right? Because when she says something like, you know, I'm not that kind of girl, we're moving too fast, I'm not comfortable going to your place, it's a direct reason, but there's underlying reasons that are communicated, right? And so by showing your hand and going, you know, well, hey, you know, what's the reasoning behind that? But of course, you don't just like say that so scientifically. It's kind of like, well, what's your reasoning behind that statement? Let us sit here and discuss it. No, you say it in a more natural way, right? And so how that plays out in the discussion really depends on, how it's going. So, let's say you're on a date with a girl. So I guess I'll just play it out. That'll be the best way to do it. I kind of wanted to theoretically go over it first. Was there anything I wanted to cover before I kind of role play it? Show your cards and then she'll show hers. No, I think, I got to the fucking point. The reason why it's charismatic. The reason why I think it's so powerful is it does develop a certain level of trust, right? Because so my attraction model, how I say it all goes down, is love, lust, and trust, right? You need a certain degree of all three, depending on what kind of personality she has. Some girls are more trust-based. Some girls are more love-based. They want a connection. And some girls are more just heavily lust. Like they just, they're really, really fucking horny. But every girl to some extent wants all three, and especially lust. Lust is going to be the most powerful every time because it is the distinguishing quality between a friendship, a platonic friendship, and, a sexual friendship, which is kind of like what a relationship is. It's friend plus lover, right? But being open and direct develops trust. So it'll kind of give you some points in that category, right? Once you learn what her issues are, it develops a connection too, because you get to know more about her, because you're going to learn about her personality through whatever objection she has, right? And it also creates a lot of lust, because when you can because what do most guys do when they reach these objections, right? They either have two extreme reactions. They're like, oh, come on, baby, we're going to have fun, let's go, come on, right? And they do that. And in some cases that can work. When certain objections are raised and you're just like, oh, come on, we're going to have some fun, da, 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 da. Sometimes it actually is what you need to do, because whatever objection she has is really only related to, she wants you to try harder. She doesn't want to feel like a slut. She wants to feel like you put some effort in. So she kind of plays this game, this artificial game. That's usually the reaction, what I'll go into a little bit later, when her objections are very non-committal. She's like, I don't know, I kind of got to get up early in the morning. And it's like, okay, you want to be convinced, right? It's like inviting your buddy out, when I was in college. Like, hey, man, you want to go out and party? I don't know, man. I've spent a lot of money, or I've been drinking a lot this week. And you're like, come on, bro, let's go. I'll buy the first round. And you're like, all right, fuck it, And it's like, you didn't have to try it all to convince me, right? Oh, okay, well, if you're going to pull my leg, I guess I'll go get shit-faced. And it's like, all right, dude, your objection was not that serious in the beginning. But if you're like, I don't know, man, I'm kind of really over this and da-da-da-da. Okay, well, then the guy, if he wants to convince you to go, party, he has to really sit there and go through your reasoning. Now, I'm not saying, it's maybe not the best example, because in convincing your buddy to go out and get shit-faced is not the most healthy thing to do, especially, for instance, I'm sober. I've been sober 4.5 years. But it's just I guess it's just a funny metaphor, but probably I should find something a little more healthy, because having sex with someone is definitely 10 times healthier than going out and getting shit-faced. But anyways, you got the fucking point. It got the point across, right? So certain objections can be more serious than others, right? But most guys are going to do that as a default. Hey, baby, come on. And the problem is, if she doesn't need that from you, it's actually going to have the opposite effect. Like if, for instance, she says I'm not ready to go home with you. Right. Or, she's basically saying, I don't trust you. I don't know who you are. You can be this, you can be that. Or it could be like you're going to fuck me and chuck me kind of situation, which is still a trust issue, but it's a trust not based on are you a serial killer and going to kill me? It's a trust of are you going to, just be like every other guy or whatever. Right. But you don't know that until you go into it. But if you pick a move, it's like in a fighting game where you just press the same move over and over, and you might win a couple rounds, but you're probably just gonna get wrecked by anyone who knows what they're doing. It's kind of what most guys do. They're like, just press the same button and it'll fucking work. Just come on, baby, come on, baby, come on, baby. Everything that they're doing is just some derivative of that. Different words, same meaning. And if you do it in the wrong situation, it has the opposite effect, and she likes you even less. right? So that's most guys' reactions. The other guy, or the other the other move of a lot of guys is like, oh, okay, cool, whatever. And it's like, all right, well, now you're not even like, a man. You got to have some persistence. I mean, Jesus Christ, right? Is there some sort of game where you can play where you're just like, okay, cool, whatever, and you do it in a way where it makes girls continue to chase you? Yes. But you have to do it in the right way and in the right context. And I've seen a lot of guys who think they're that kind of person and they're not, and they just end up losing the girl. And I've done it myself. I've done it in situations where I'm just like, play it really cool, and then like she continues to chase me. But it's because of a lot of contextual things are kind of lining up, and I do it in the right way. Because girls can tell girls can smell bullshit a lot of times. They can tell when you're really okay with it, and you're just like, oh, whatever. And then they can tell when you're putting on an act, or they can tell when you're upset, and then that tells them all they need to know about your reaction, right? Because they're watching how you're reacting, right? And they're formulating judgments, and it's going to affect their trust towards you and their lust towards you and their love towards you, their connection. So most guys just like are stupidly persistent and bang their head against the wall, and some guys are they just give up at the first sign of trouble, right? The reason why you want to actually discuss this with her is because it finds out what the problem is, so you can connect to her. It shows you're transparent and communicative, which builds a lot of trust. And it builds some lust because you do have some masculine persistence, because girls do like when the men are persistent, unless they are like, they have decided no, and it's a firm no. They've reached a certain percentage of disinterest that is just, you're not going to come back from it. Once you hit that point, persistence becomes annoying or creepy, right? Or scary, because some guys out there are like really stupid when it comes to their persistence. So being open and talking about it solves all of these issues, right? Because if you try to talk with someone and they're just like shut off, you're like, oh, okay, good thing I didn't keep trying, because they're done, right? I said something on the date, or they just realized something, or they're so fucked up from a previous, who knows what it is, right? But by openly discussing with them what the barrier is, you can actually find the problem, or just by them not willing to talk with you shows you the problem. Well, whatever it is, it's insurmountable, right? And when you reach that point, what we call auto rejection, where she's just like automatically rejecting you, it doesn't matter what you do or say, coming back from that 99% of the time is not going to happen. The only time I've ever seen comebacks in those situations is when I was in a social circle with them, and then I would see them weeks, months, or years down the line, and they would change their minds about me based on, a lot of times they see me with a different girl and they go, okay, well, maybe he's not so bad, because girls are like that. Especially when you have a hot girl, they're like, okay, well, fuck, maybe I made a mistake because she sees something in him that I didn't, maybe I should go, and then, she sucks your dick. Had it happen a lot of times, and it's a very funny experience to see a girl go from like, no thanks to like, so anyways, how to actually do it, right? So let's do some like role play, right? I can't go through every single one, obviously. God damn it, why do I keep clicking off? There it is. So like, I'm not comfortable going to your place yet. This is a hard one, okay? Because like your chances are pretty low once you're here. But again, it depends on her tonality, right? If she's like, I don't know, I don't really know you yet, sorry, I'm not really comfortable going to your place yet. That one's pretty hard, right? You can't just suddenly make someone trust you, right? Because it's a trust issue, right? It's also probably a lack of attraction too. Because a lot of times when a girl says this, there's this and this and this, things under it that are, really the real reason. And a lot of guys have the perspective that like, no matter what it is, it's a lack of attraction. That's not always true. And the reason this is true is because like, let's say you're making out with her. Let's say you're at a club and you're making out with her and you're grabbing her ass and she's grabbing up on you. And then you do this invitation. You're like, hey, let's go back to my place. Let's get out of here. And she's like, I don't know, I don't really know you that well. And you're thinking, well, what the fuck? Like, my hands have been all over your body, everywhere except for inside of you. Like, what's going on? Well, what she's communicating is I trust you enough to like have a fun club makeout with you, but I don't trust you enough to actually suck your dick or like sleep with you, right? That's just a level that you haven't yet reached. Attraction's not really the issue. And a lot of times back in the day, I used to think, I'm like, oh my God, like, what the fuck? Like, how is she not attracted enough to me? Well, the answer was she was attracted enough to me. If a girl's attracted enough to like do all that with you, if you can make out with a girl and feel up on a girl, she's attracted enough to you to have sex with you. Like, you've reached that threshold where because she's probably wet, right? She would have sex with you. But there's a difference between wanting to have sex with you, would have sex with you, and will have sex with you, right? There's three different layers there, right? Want is just like I have enough desire. Would or like will is like all the things are in line, but then is about to, I guess is another way to put that third level, is like you have the logistics there as well. Like, I don't know, you meet some girl and you guys have this amazing connection, but then she has to grab a flight, right? You know, in a couple hours, and you, for whatever reason, you can't go find a place. I've had that happen. And it's like, fuck, everything was there except for like, we just needed some time, right? So it can't reach that third level. Okay. So, but if it's like, I'm not comfortable going to your place yet, that's a trust issue, not of like physical safety, right? Because she's like being vulnerable with you. She's letting you touch her all over. Like, if she thought you were a creepazoid or a weirdo, she wouldn't be letting you do that, right? So she has some sort of a trust issue based off of, usually because you're grabbing her ass and making out with her in a club, she thinks you're a player. So that's what you need to address. But here's the thing. I already know most of these answers beforehand based on contexts because I've been in all the contexts, right? But you don't know them. You can't really read them beforehand. I got to a point where I could like straight up guess what the fuck it is because I've seen it so many times. And I've failed to persuade girls to come back. But then once I knew what it was, I would address the situation and then they would come back with me. So therefore, I figured it out, right? So the reason why you need to bring it up and ask her is because you don't know what it is, right? You're not going to be able to sit there and go through a fucking list of like Hector's, you know, objection, you know, contexts with like, this has A, B, and 7 together. Well, that means this is the answer, right? You have to like figure it out. So you have to say, okay, well, what's the issue really here, right? You can ask a question like that, right? Now, in this context, things are a bit different. Like, you're making out with her and grabbing her ass, right? So you kind of look at her and be like, really? You're not comfortable? I mean, you seem comfortable with me, right? She says objection X. You have rebuttal X. It meets it. I'm not comfortable with you. Clearly, you're fucking comfortable with me, right? So she has to respond, right? So she's going to be like, yeah, right? Because you call her on her bullshit, right? So sometimes you got to call girls on their bullshit. That's one way to do it. Right, so let's write some of these down. Right, like I can't come up with some perfect list. That would be worth like $1 million, because there's so many contexts. But like, one thing is call her bullshit out, and that you want to call out her bullshit when clearly the reason is not the reason. But you have to be careful with this, because if you do it in a way that seems overly presumptuous, then it can come off rude. It can come off too aggressive, right? Like, I'm trying to think of a situation. Like, she's like, oh, I have to wake up early in the morning. And you're like, oh, come on. You know, who cares about that? Come with me. And you don't have that vibe with her. She's going to be like, well, fuck this dude. You know, like, I got to go to work, right? Like, you're not cool with her on that level yet. But if, like, you've reached this level where you're making out with her and grabbing her ass and feeling up on each other and she's clearly into you, you can call her out. Be like, really? You're not comfortable with me? And, you know, squeeze her ass. And she'll go, oh, you know, blah, 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 you know, ha, ha, ha. And start giggling, right? And then she might tell you the real reason. But she might just come up with some more bullshit. So what you have to do is keep pushing through the layers of bullshit until you get to the real reason. Be like, come on, what is it really? Now, if you're like me and you can guess, you can be like, okay, what's going on with here? Like, you know, do you think I'm going to like sleep with you and not text you? Or did you just get out of a relationship? Like, I have some guesses of what it probably is. It's usually even like, cause you'll get the, I'm not that kind of girl objection, right? which is what we call anti-slut defense. Girls don't want you to see them as a slut, but then, they do at the same time, right? But you have to reach a certain threshold of trust for them to be open with you, seeing them like a slut. It's usually when you're like fucking them in the ass and, slapping them around and calling them a whore. Okay, suddenly they like it, right? So where does that flip happen? Well, it happens when she trusts you, right? And so I'm not that kind of girl is saying, I'm putting up this wall because I don't want you to make this judgment about me, because once you make this judgment about me, your behavior towards me is going to change, right? So sometimes, I don't want to go back to your place is also actually just that. And the other objection that leads to the same place is when you're a player. It leads to the same place, meaning like when you're a player, her fear is that you're going to fuck her and not call her again. Most girls' hesitations around sex is that. Like the majority of them actually are that. Sometimes it is just a pure lack of attraction. And if that's the case, you just need to become more attractive, and not just physically, like your behaviors and your game, etc. But a lot of objections that women have when going home with you is literally just, I don't want to be devalued by sleeping with him quickly, because they probably are attracted enough to you. Women are in a lot of ways similar to men and in a lot of ways different. But in a lot of ways, women are just as horny and they love sex just as much, if not more, than men. And if once they reach a certain point, they want to fuck a guy. Like they are thinking about having sex with you, and they know they would enjoy it. But they have to play a little bit different of a game with you. Because once a woman does have sex, she sometimes loses the power. Sometimes she gains 10 times more because the guy gets fucking addicted to the pussy and just loses his mind. Which does happen with a lot of guys, even guys who you would think are really good with girls. But a lot of times when she does give the pussy, it does flip the dynamic, because now you've been there, right? And this is the lament of a lot of women who are like, oh, he told me I was special and we talked for weeks and months and then I gave him pussy and then boom, he suddenly changed his, demeanor. But not wanting you to toot it and boot it, fuck her and not call her again, is a very common objection. Or a common deeper motivation, the real objection, the one you're trying to get to by talking to her, right? Like actually discussing, like, what's the real reason here, right? So knowing that, your chances of that being the case are very high. You want to work your way there. You don't want to immediately jump to it, but you do want to start asking questions to get there, right? But the you're a player thing, she's usually not going to say it outright, but that's usually going to be the case when you move really fast with her and she really liked you the entire time. Because some guys, even if you're not a player, she might assume you're a player. Because by her perspective, you're really charming and cute and sexy. And she's like, fuck, this guy must get a lot of girls, right? Because from her perspective, you do. But it's also going to happen when you do actually get a lot of girls. And you haven't yet gotten over that hump where you are hot enough to be like super attractive to a lot of girls, but then sincere and cool enough that they're like, he doesn't seem like a player, right? That's when you're very good at seduction. When it's not even like you're deceiving them. You're just such a sincere person that they feel enough of a connection with you. Like deep down, they're like, yeah, this guy probably gets a lot of bitches, but like he's so good at it. Like I can't really find any faults with the way he's doing things. That's when you're really, really good. Like they know they probably shouldn't, but they're going to anyways because it's just too damn good. But most guys aren't there. Most guys are, attractionless loser nobodies, friend zone guys, boyfriend guys, and then players. And then very few men reach that, off the screen awesomeness level where they're like a true lover of women. Super rare. I would say I've probably met less than a handful. Yeah, so you need to go through these objections, right? I can't script out an entire conversation just fucking off the cuff, right? You think I'm going to sleep with you on the first date? Well, why not, right? You can straight up, a lot of times you can just like big dick it, right? Well, why not? Well, because, I'm not that kind of girl. What do you mean you're that kind of girl? What does that mean? You don't like sex? Well, no, that's, asking simple questions. It's kind of like cross-examining someone on the stand, just like a simple question. Be like, what, you don't like sex? Well, I mean, I do, but X and Y. And then you have to respond to that. And she's like, well, you're not going to, have you ever done that before? Well, I've done it one time, but then, oh, okay. Right? You can even call her and be like, okay, so that guy got to have sex on the first date, but you're going to put the brakes on for me? Now, if you do that kind of question, you have to be careful, because then you can kind of come off resentful. Right? Be like, oh, well, he got pussy and I didn't. But if you do it with the right attitude, it could actually be kind of funny. Be like, oh, okay, so he was different, but me, oh, okay, all right. Was he just like the love of your life? So you got to find creative ways to kind of dig through it. And she'd be like, well, I thought, he da-da-da-da-da, and then, he didn't call me back, and then learn the context and be like, okay, well, what was the situation? Well, I was on vacation. It was like, okay, well, what are you, an idiot, right? You don't want to say that, or maybe you do. It depends how direct you are, right? Like me, I would say something like that. I'd be like, really, girl, you went on vacation to Italy and you were surprised some fucking Italian machismo boy didn't call you back, and, kind of poke fun at her. I'd be like, you're being kind of silly, right? But if it's a situation where it's like, oh, this guy, and I had this really good connection, and he told me that I was really special and he really liked me, okay, well then, he's probably a psychopath and he's just really good at seduction and lying to girls, right? That's the kind of seduction I don't approve of. Clearly, I'm being very open and direct and transparent, right? So I'm teaching you. And then be like, well, I'm sorry that happened to you, right? Because it's genuine. And be like, yeah, that's really shitty. Then here's where you get the, one second, I'm opening this tab so I can see how the camera looks. Then this is where you get the fucking, the whoop, the alley-oop, the slam dunk. So let's say that conversation happens, right? Be like, well, I'm really sorry that happened to you. But here's the thing. I'm not going to do that to you because I'm not going to bullshit you. This is what I want. And you tell her what you want, right? So if she is not the kind of girl that you would have a relationship with, be like, look, I'll be honest with you, I'm not looking for a relationship right now, but clearly we're very attracted to each other, and I would love to have fun with you, right? I would love to come back to your place or you come back to mine, and, how graphic you want to get depends on you. Me, I'm very graphic. Like, I'll be like, I'm going to be honest, I really want to bend you over. You have an amazing ass, and I would love to pound that pussy from behind. I'm straight up fucking direct like that. Like, no one I know is like that, right? But I will say it so deadpan or a little bit like kind of devilicious. Be like, God damn it, I really just want to fuck your pussy, right? I'll be like, I just really want to kiss you. Like, you don't necessarily have to jump to sex. You can say, I really want to kiss you, but I want to do it in private so that if things go further, we can actually do that, right? Or, be super direct. Tell her you want to fuck her pussy. You want to, slap her ass. You want to eat her pussy out. You want to, choke her with your dick. Like, I don't know how graphic you want to be. It depends, how big your fucking balls are, right? Most people don't have big balls, right? Most guys are pussies, and they're not going to go big dick like I do when they just straight up tell a girl what they want. But I can tell you that the reactions on girls' faces when they have objection X or Y, and then you kind of like address it, but then there's still that lingering, yeah, but now what kind of situation? And then you go, I want to fuck you. The reactions are great. Like, they're just like magical. They usually have like a stunned face. Like, okay, well, I've never had a guy be that direct with me. I've heard that line fucking tons of times. Or they get really turned on. You can just see them like start smiling and like, somewhat nervous and taken aback, but at the same time, like very excited by the fact that you're so direct. And then if you add on to it while you're like grabbing their ass and making out with them, because you guys have kind of already been there, it's pretty fucking powerful, right? Now, you don't have to go to that level, but I do want you to make it clear why you're there. So I would say kind of put it into 3 categories, right? Because most of the objections are going to be about this, right? You would only fuck her, once and never want to see her again. You would, fuck her and casually see her and hang out with her. And then like you would consider her as a girlfriend, or even like really outright want her as a girlfriend, right? And put her into those categories and then tell her those are your intentions. Now, you're not going to say, I want you to be my girlfriend if it's level 3. You want to say something like, look, I'm really attracted to you. I think you're really awesome. I know we're just getting to know each other, but obviously I'm very like physically attracted to you. But I also think you have a lot more to you, and I would like to get to know and figure out if, how much of a connection we really do share. And maybe down the line something can happen, right? Now, if you say that But in response to a situation where she was taken advantage of and lied to, you have to be very persuasive because you're fighting an uphill battle because she's already heard something like that before, right? But the thing is, you being so direct might be enough of a departure from what she would expect that it is persuasive in and of itself because it builds trust, right? But for the love of every God in every heaven, do not fucking lie. I swear to God, do not fucking use this as like, if you use this incorrectly, I mean, lying already has its own bad karma, right? It's not like I'm putting a hex on you, okay? I'm just telling you bad things will happen because you will be punished down the line. Karma will find you for being deceitful, okay? So if she's a 1, don't tell her a 3, right? You just want to, you might even put a paper bag on that bitch and bend her over and because, she's a butterface or something. But you tell her a 3 so you can get pussy, dude, fuck you. You're a piece of trash, right? But here's the thing also. You got to have some balls to be vulnerable because if you see her as a 3, don't say a 2. Because that would also be a lie. Now you're underselling it. Be like, look, I'm really attracted to you. I would love to keep seeing you. Like, I think you're an amazing girl. Like, that's really how I feel. But you don't want to say, I mean, I think you're really cool. We could hang out and have some fun. I'm not looking for anything super serious, right? It's kind of like a 2 response. 1 response is kind of like, look, I'll be honest with you. I'm just looking to have some fun. I'm not going to sit here and like, let's say some girl that you really don't find that attractive got, bamboozled. And you're like, okay, well, I don't want to lie to you and be like, I want a relationship because I don't. I just want to have some fun. You have to say it in a sort of casual, half-hearted way where it's very clear because if you were wanting to play the bullshit game, you would probably oversell it. That's what most people do when they bullshit you. Oh my God, it's the most amazing thing. Oh my God, I'm not even making any commission on this car sale. The used car salesman, charisma. Usually when you have that understated, just like, I'll be honest with you, I just want to have sex, right? It's very believable because it's so non-try hard, right? But of course, there is some skill involved here. Like, you can't be too much like, honestly, just want to use you like a fleshlight. I mean, you don't want to come off too much like that because every woman has a certain threshold of self-respect, right? Different women have varying levels, right? Some women really don't. But at the end of the day, no matter what objection you find and how you respond to it, because I could go on for hours on every little minute detail depending on how to respond, every context and because there are other objections, right? But at the end of the day, no matter what it is, once you get down to it, girls love sex, okay? And most women who would even say, like, I don't have casual sex, they're either lying because they already have done it. What they mean is, I've already done it and don't want to do it again because of X or Y reason. But it's still bullshit. It's technically a lie. So, don't, you have to hold people accountable, right? A lot of times it's bullshit. Most girls would be down for casual sex because girls like sex. Okay? They really like sex just as much, if not more than you. If you don't know that, you haven't had enough sex. Or had enough good sex to see that women love sex. But you're not manipulating women. Okay? They want dick just as much as you want pussy. But there is this hidden, weird, retarded idea that somehow we have to like work for sex. You have to play the pursuer role and be the persuasive penetrator, and she plays the receiving role. But a lot of her playing is somewhat artificial, and women really do like dick. This is not license to harass or be overly persistent. I think I've already made that clear. When a girl's not interested, very clearly not interested, it's going to be apparent in her body language. It's going to be very decisive. Like, sorry, I got to get up early in the morning. Okay, well, there's no room for persuasion there, right? But when a girl is playing that game, that feigning objection, but there's a spectrum, like I said, right? Super serious to kind of serious to, you just, come on, let's go party. Okay, fine, fuck it, right? Up until the point where it's like really serious, everything up until here, it is it has the foundation of girls want to get dick. Okay. So understanding that will help you have fun with it, help you not take it too seriously. Because there is a game being played here. Even when I try to be the most transparent and open and honest as possible, there is still some level of, I don't even know if I can call it deceit from her end, because I'm being so open and, I've sat there and I'm like so sincere. And she's like, well, I don't know. And she's like grabbing on me and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you're saying this, right? But your body and your behavior is saying, I want dick. And it's like, how can you have so much cognitive dissonance, right? But that's because lust isn't usually the issue by this point. If lust is the issue, like meaning lust is so low that she's not attracted, lust might be here, and through properly handling objections, you can raise it because you're just so cool and charismatic about it. But I mean, it's like down in the dumps. You can't really negotiate lust at that point. It's non-negotiable. What you're usually dealing with these objections is love or trust issues, meaning a connection issue with love or a trust issue. And trust issues either range from like, I don't feel physically safe around you, or it can be like, I don't trust you to, like text me back, or to be who you say you're going to be, because you seem so cool and like you're going to, maybe not be my boyfriend, but at least be a cool guy. But you might not be, and you're just going to fuck me and never call me again, right? That's where trust kind of lies. Or you're going to judge me, right? I'm not that kind of girl. Also has an element of you're going to judge me. Not only you're not going to call me back, but you're actually going to think less of me, which is just a pure self-esteem, like it hurts to have someone judge you kind of objection, right? But don't ever forget that at the end of the day, girls love dick, okay? And so if there is a modicum of attraction there and then you guys are just like haggling on the final details of the sale, don't misconstrue this like she likes dick. She wants to get laid. There isn't any sort of like, you're not really pulling her arm here or wringing her arm. Like she's looking for a reason. If she's sticking around while you're persuading, she's looking for a reason to buy, right? It's just up to your skill of selling the product, right? And getting past the objections, because they might be genuine objections. And that's pretty much the goal of like questioning, asking this, then asking this, then asking this, then asking this, and you get more detailed with it. And really what you're doing is just finding motivations and demotivations. What is demotivating her to come home with me? And it's going to be something. I don't want you to judge me. I don't want you to chuck me or fuck me and chuck me. I don't want you to, I just got out of a bad breakup, so I don't really know if I have the capacity for emotions, but then that has an underlying thing where I assume that this is going to be serious. And so you can actually diffuse that by letting her know that it's not going to be serious, but then which might open the door and get her home with you, or it might actually raise another objection, which is I'm not that kind of girl who would be down for something casual, which then of course has to be dismantled. Like, is that genuine, or does that come from a false sense of like, I'm a bad bitch and da da da, or is it like genuine? She doesn't believe casual sex is a good thing. Like she thinks it's bad and sex should only be in a relationship. Like, oh my God, there's so many layers here, right? But the only way that you're going to get to it is by openly communicating and showing your hand and transparently discussing what's the real reason. And if you find the real reason and you can give the solution without lying and without overpromising, then she will come home with you. But if there comes a point where like she genuinely seems like, for instance, she only wants a relationship, then you just have to accept that, right? You're not going to bullshit your way into pussy at that point, right? But some girls are just bullshitting and they don't actually mean that. And they're just putting up that front because, whatever. That's what they're taught to do. To like, oh, I'm not going to accept anything but the best. And it's like, well, sometimes you just want dick. Just like sometimes we just want pussy, right? It doesn't have to be super serious. So anyways, yeah, we're just openly communicating. And so I can't script every fucking scenario, right? I guess I gave you a little bit of a rough sketch of how it goes. There's many different objections with many different contexts, but they all have to be handled in their own kind of way, and it depends on what your relationship with her up until now is. Like, is she really hot and piping and ready for you? Is she kind of like, or is she like right on the edge of like, I don't know. And then there's the issue of like, okay, well, if I show too much interest when she's not interested, then it's going to tank my attraction. But when I have a high level of attraction, I actually need to show a high level of interest because she's feeling high level, and so that feels actually even. Whereas if I didn't push hard enough, it actually kind of can lose attraction because she doesn't feel like I'm at the level with her. And so it feels like I'm casually pushing for sex when really I should be more passionate about it because she's also really into me, but because I'm so casually doing it, I actually seem like I'm not that as interested as she's interested, which makes her feel bad, like she's gonna get fucked and chucked because you're just whatever about her. Like, this shit can get really deep, boys. You can tell I put a lot of thought into it. But anyways, this is a 50-minute video. Holy Jesus Christ almighty. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want coaching like this, where I go into your specific issues, just the same way that I will deal with a woman's specific issues when it comes to seducing her or, being in a relationship with her. It's not just about getting her home to have sex with you. This applies to everything in the relationship, right? But just the same way that I get so detailed about girls, I get the same way about clients. That sounds fucking weird, but it'll make sense in a minute. I get into your mind by listening to your story and you telling me about how you've interacted with the girls in the past relationships, past dates, whatever, and I can also get to know you in person over the video chat, and I can actually see what you need to work on. I can see what your own objections are to your future self that is going to make yourself more seductive and more attractive to women and understand how to have better relationships. Because I have the knowledge of how to be better, but then it has to be applied specifically to your case, which means we have to get past your specific walls to get to here. I know what this looks like, but it's going to look a little bit different depending on who you are and what level you're at, and also what personality you have. You might come at it from different angles and express things in different ways, and they have to be tailored, just like a custom Italian tailored suit to your body and your mind and your life, right? So the same way I'm very tailored to women, depending on the seduction, I'm very tailored to clients. And that's why it's a one-on-one coaching relationship. And that's why it's so effective, because it is tailored to you. So if you're interested in something like that, there's a sign-up sheet in the description below. You just go to the website, put in your information, and send an email to me. I'll be in touch with you, and we can have a consultation call and see if coaching is right for you. Anyways, I'm exhausted. 52 minutes. Jesus Christ. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Girlschase.com. Hector Castillo signing out. See ya.